CAPSI podcast series, Conversations on African Philanthropy.
It's our 6th year of the African Conference on African Philanthropy. Everywhere where we go, we take the opportunity to experience the place, to experience the culture, but to also showcase the country in which we are doing the conference in. But we also use the opportunity to speak to delegates, record them for our conversations on African philanthropy. So welcome to the Conversations on African Philanthropy on the Nile River, where we are shooting some of our episodes. And in the next 5 days or so, we'll be speaking to different delegates, different actors, activists, foundations, government officials, researchers, you name it all. You want to find anything to do with African philanthropy, visit our channel on YouTube and other platforms, our Conversations on African Philanthropy. Welcome to a special Conversations on African Philanthropy with me, Bhekinkosi Moyo. We are shooting this in Cairo at the Gerhard Center on Philanthropy at the American University in Cairo. We are hosting, jointly with Trust Africa and other partners, our 6th African Conference on Philanthropy. I'm excited to be joined this morning by Lelentle Motaung. Lelentle is a young, vibrant personnel, part of CAPSI's journey towards developing emerging scholars in African philanthropy. And Lelentle has been part of that journey, and I thought it's useful for us to take this conversation, Lelentle, and talk a bit about your journey as one of the very first people who joined the program at CAPSI, but also you've been part of the different versions of the conference. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, your first conference was in Dakar, and then Victoria Falls, and then we are here. Anyway, welcome to the Conversations.
Thank you, Prof.
Let's start with maybe just giving you an opportunity to talk a bit about yourself. I mean, we know you, but if you were to give the audience a sense of who you are, where you've come from, what really keeps you going?
Thank you, Prof. So my name is Lelentle Motaung. I am a water scientist by profession initially. So I've studied water care, both my up to BTech level. I then joined Wits Business School, and I did monitoring and evaluation, but then I also did my Master of Management in African Philanthropy. I actually stumbled upon the qualification. I didn't know it, but I think one thing that has guided me really in these decision makings is my principles in faith and religion. So for me, I was having a conversation earlier around the relevance of philanthropy, right? And how people think it's very small. But once you delve deep into philanthropy, you then reflect on yourself as a person. So personally, what grounds you morally. But secondly, it fits into any profession. So I think that's my journey to say who I am. Originally a scientist, but I found myself in philanthropy.
Yeah. But maybe let's talk about the formal qualification as a scientist and ending up in philanthropy. Are there any patterns? Are there any factors that you could refer to? I mean, generally people get trained in one thing, they end up in doing another.
Yeah.
Very few people are trained in one discipline and they stay in it. In your case, what is it that made you shift, or maybe you haven't shifted fully, but move from science to philanthropy? Philanthropy is still a science anyway, but it's a different form of science.
I think what intrigued me really, or has kept me here, is the availability of water resources and sanitation.
Yeah.
So you might have the scientific background, but we don't have the gears, the infrastructure, and the ability to take them to the community unless we partner with philanthropy and philanthropic organizations. So I think that's what's kept me. I was seeing a lot of projects being in feasibility stage, being in inception stage. They still are. People think on these things. People want to get water to rural areas, remote areas. People want to get sanitation there, but we're really battling. I work for local government, and I see these things on a daily where you will see a need in a mining community, and that's where my research really is. And the mining company will actually hire us to assist them with water availability and sanitation, but the community is struggling. So those are the things that really made me stay in African philanthropy, to say how then can we add on something for the community.
Yeah. So let's talk a bit about the link between local governance or local government and philanthropy, because more often people don't see the connection between public policy and philanthropy. And I know that in the last 2 or 3 years, we have had time to also do a module on public policy and philanthropy. But you are a specific case of somebody who works in government, local government for that matter, which means you are closer to the masses. And that's where philanthropy, government services are needed. But from your perspective, if you are to wear the hat of a civil servant, what is that nexus that you see on a day-to-day basis between philanthropy and local government?
I think we ignore it quite a lot, but the challenge is that when we do corporate social investments in local government, we want to give people things that are unrelated to service delivery. I think for me, the conversation has been, how do we enhance what we do and give it to indigents and people that can't afford it? I think that's the CSI in government that we should start speaking on. So if you're a water and sanitation body, the corporate social investment shouldn't be giving out things like sanitary towels. It should be saying, what is it that we are doing that people can afford, right, in terms of public service? What is it that we still need to do that people can't access due to money or infrastructure? And that is the gap. So I think that's the nexus, to say there is a space for philanthropy in local government, but we're ignoring it because we don't collaborate with the community, but also we don't want to take the steps to actually implement what we're doing when we're not getting paid for it.
Yeah.
But there is a space.
Yeah. So you have had the benefit, maybe unlike many others, to spend at least a couple of years now studying philanthropy. If you were to advise governments across the continent on exactly what you have just said, what would be your 2 or 3 recommendations for government to take into account?
I think first is participation. You can't roll out a program for people that you don't know.
Yeah.
For it to reach the felt needs of communities, you need to understand what the communities are doing. And participation is not a tick box exercise, right? So I'm not talking about participation in terms of what we see in the legislative framework, because it's got its own limitations, but I'm talking about actually involving people. And if you look at Arnstein's model, which is the ladder of citizen participation, you need to be able to look at the community and say, what do they have and how can you collaborate? So it doesn't end at what can I give them. It's what do they have, what do they still need, what can they give into the project, and what can I then give into the project? So that's the first approach. Second approach is the issue of communication. We need to start communicating with communities as like for like. So governments should start understanding that communities have something. Communities are not there because they only need from the government, but because they can also collaborate. Thirdly, is to put your money where your mouth is at as government. It's not enough to say, I can do this, I can do that, but not putting your money there. Be willing to invest in it, even though it's long term. And when I say put your money in it, I mean if the government doesn't have money, they must leverage off their networks and get the money to put it there into the programs. Yeah.
So G20 coming through in a couple of months in South Africa, where you are based. What's planned for local government and the G20? And if you were to invite philanthropy, what would be their role?
Nice one, Prof. I think in 2 weeks we're attending an AU investment summit. It's a water-focused investment summit that we're attending in Cape Town with the company that I work for. It's an interaction between sanitation, so it's us. We're one of the most specialized entities actually in South Africa when it comes to wastewater treatment. It's Rand Water there because they provide drinking water, and many other states that are attending. If I were to invite philanthropy to it, really it's for us to enter the room and give people an understanding of where to invest. Because money will be thrown. Yeah. There is availability of money, which is something that I preach in every other meeting that we have. But we need a structured approach in philanthropy. And until we have that, we'll just claim that we need money. Yeah. So that's the space for philanthropy, where we need scholarly literature to actually enter the room. And we need professionals like yourself, Prof, to actually join the table. Because I think it's a free event as well. I mean, these things, most of them come sponsored. but we need relevant conversations at that table. Yeah.
I mean, we are here in Egypt. The theme of our conference is Sustainable Financing for Development in the Majority World. Like we heard in the opening ceremony, we were talking about how this came about. And the moment right now, there's lots of alignments with the G20, with Sevilla outcome, but also the APC here in Egypt. This is your third, participation in this platform. Maybe talk to us and maybe describe the journey so far for you as a participant. I might have a different, description as the person who is working with others to put the event together. But for you as a delegate, for 3 consecutive conferences, what has been the journey so far for you? What are the either incremental steps that you have seen or areas that still remain lacking that need to be attended to, especially if we are to grow this as a platform and a premier platform for philanthropy in the continent?
I think let me start with your last question,
Yeah.
and then I'll go to my journey. So what lacks in the conference really is key decision makers in each state. So for instance, local government, provincial government. I was pleased actually to see last year Prof. Enter the room, but we need leadership in the state to actually enter the room. We don't have people in respective spaces in the different states that are here. For instance, in South Africa, my one question would be, why is the MEC of water or whatever not involved in here? So I think a sectoral approach would benefit us to say, we need prominent people in water, we need prominent people in health and in different sectors. The journey for me, starting with the first one, I think the first one was kind of finding your feet, trying to understand what's going on, trying to make an impression.
This Senegal? Or?
Senegal.
Okay, yeah.
Trying to make an impression, especially as a scholar.
Yeah.
But I think when you enter the second one, you understand that you're not there to make an impression. You're there to grow, one. The presentation that you make is for you to go back and try and edify it. But also you look at your presentation as something that can contribute both to practice and to scholarly literature. This year, what has changed really a lot for me is that we are beginning to write with intention. So as you're attending the sessions, you're getting your feedback. You're not waiting for you to present and then only you see the intersectionality of things. And I think it's really grown. The themes themselves are on par with what's happening in the world. But I think also a person grows throughout the journey. When it's cut short, I know people attend 1 or 2, but I think it's a journey really. You need to attend the first one, then go to the second one and make it an annual thing. And also the presence on social media. People begin to understand what you're about and they become interested in what you're doing. I think this year was the first time when my managing director actually asked me, what is this year about? Where are you guys going? And there's a growing interest because people see you going and they actually see the feedback on social media. They actually hear you when you speak. And that's why I'm saying, let's involve people. Let it not just stop at that.
So in a way, you are saying you have grown. And even your own organization sees it. But maybe say a bit about that growth. So who were you then and who are you now?
I think who I was then was a person seeking to see where funding comes from and how we can acquire it. But who I am now is a person that says, I can do something. How can I collaborate with other people to bring solutions, not only to South Africa, but to Africa?
And I think also, given that you have been to 3 different geographic areas, also even from a personal growth and cultural, immersion, one can come out and say, I was in Dakar, this is what I got to learn about the country, the culture, the politics, this is what I experienced. Then the following year I went to Zambia, Zimbabwe, and then now you're in North Africa during this moment in history. But maybe let's move to our last segment, which is your academic journey. You said you accidentally came across the program, which most of us actually, in a way, did. Philanthropy as a discipline in Africa is something completely new. In fact, it also occurred to me accidentally. I write about it in the book that I edited with a colleague it was also an accidental encounter, and I then grew an interest, and here we are today. In your case, again, an accidental encounter, but we're talking about how many years now you are. You were talking before we came on set about your PhD,
Yeah.
but you joined us at was it master's level?
Master's level, yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk a bit about that leap into an accident and finding yourself here today.
So I think the leap was justified by my faith. So I leaped into it, yes, but then I found justification and motivation from faith-based motivations. I think what I find very interesting is you can go back home and speak about philanthropy to even your pastor and they understand. Then go to work and speak to your boss and he understands it, you know. And that intersectionality came out very clear last year in the conference when somebody was speaking about mutilation in, I think it was in Kenya.
Yeah.
And the intersectionalities there with philanthropy and how philanthropy can assist and climate change.
Yeah.
So all these intersectionalities are very interesting to see. So in my PhD, I've moved from speaking about corporate social investments in mining companies only, but I've zoomed into the youth to say, do we actually know what we're doing? Do you understand that poverty is multidimensional in nature? And so those are the fragments that I find myself grappling with every day to say we are doing programs, we're doing service delivery, but on an individual or an isolated basis. We never look at the person in their totality, in their multidimensionality, and try and address those different needs with one program.
Yeah.
And it's been quite interesting for me from master's to PhD, because I think in the master's level also, it was a drive to say mining companies have this money, they must inject it into the community. But now it's to say mining companies do have the requisite resources, but the communities have resources as well. And also, who else can partner with them to make an effective change? Are these things really effective? Are we doing them just for show? If we're not doing them for show, what can we do to enhance them? Yeah.
Yeah. So talking about your master's and then now your PhD, maybe briefly, you know, at the master's level, you have to produce a report. Are you able to summarize what your report was about and what were the key findings in your study?
My master's is about addressing sustainable community development using corporate aid from mining companies. And that was through corporate social investments. And I remember we were asking mining companies, what is it that they do to target communities? What kind of participation in there? And we were trying to gauge or rather assess the form of participation that came in terms of planning the corporate social investments programs, and also looking at how they monitor it up to finalization. And what came out of the masters was issues around community participation, to say mining companies are under the assumption that because they follow the IDP process, there is sufficient participation, right? But communities don't even know that mining companies are involved in the IDP and take those findings to incorporate them into their planning phase, right? And so you found that many communities felt that mining companies are not fair on them. They don't address their felt needs. But also I came across a certain chief that said to me, why do mining companies think we don't have money? You know, mining companies don't want to engage with us over a long period of time. But mining companies are saying our program should only last for 3 years, you know? So those were some of the key findings, to say there's no collaboration and there's no understanding between the mining companies and the actual community members. However, in their reporting, the mining companies will report that they're actually doing something, which is a justification because their goals have been met. But I think what came out strongly was the need for collaboration, the need for understanding one another, the power dynamics as well, to say there are different power dynamics at play. Mining companies probably don't know this or are oblivious to it, but we need to start discussing those things to say who holds the power. Is it an equal shared power? Do we understand that the communities have power as well? So those were some of the main findings, but also issues around monitoring and evaluation. Mining companies think they'll monitor the program at the end. Communities are saying, but it's not working now. And we are vocal about it now. Why don't you take it and incorporate it into your reporting? Yeah.
And then your key research question for the PhD, that I know it's still early stages, it might change over time, but for now?
For now, I'm looking at issues of definition. How do we define multidimensional youth poverty? do mining companies understand that it's multidimensional in its nature? But I'm also asking questions around targeting. Are we really targeting multidimensional youth poverty? Are we targeting just youth poverty? Are we targeting just poverty? And then third to that is, are we impactful? Are mining companies impactful in what they are implementing? Are they even interested in the impact part of it? Yeah.
So let's talk about positionality, because there seems to be something about you and mining. Let's talk about that.
I come from Mafikeng.
Okay.
It's a town outside of Rustenburg. So when you go home every day, you see that mine, and you really want to work for that mine, but you see also shacks around the mine. So I'm not directly influenced by it because that's not home. But as I go home, I pass these things. And then you go back to Sandton, you see this big brick wall, what do you call this, building that is offices. Those people are prospering. But my question has always been, what is happening on the ground? So I'm not directly influenced by it. But I see these things every now and then.
Okay. All right. So you will be presenting at these academic sessions. What's your paper on, and what you hope to achieve? Firstly, with the academic presentations, but overall, what you hope to achieve with the participation in the next 5 days of the conference?
I'm going to be presenting on using corporate philanthropy to address multidimensional youth poverty, specifically in the mining sector. I'm hoping to get input in terms of whether in other countries this is being implemented. I heard in this session that we're speaking about, we're all targeting youth poverty, but we're not targeting it from a multidimensional perspective. There should be something that's driving that. And that's what I hope to understand, to say, why is it that we are advancing health and education more than other things? Is it because there's some scientific base? Has it been proven that those are the only things that will advance prosperity of young people? I know there's a capital theory that speaks to education. It says if a person is educated, then we can confirm that they will become an affluent person. But I disagree. So I want to gauge whether my disagreement really is valid. And over the 5 days, I want to interact with both scholarly literature, scholars that are writing, but also understand what professionals are saying.
All right. Finally, any story that you can refer to or recite that you can say this is your story of an encounter with philanthropy. It could be something that you have done, or something that you have seen happen, or something that has been done to you. And you can say, this is my story of philanthropy.
I think quite recently, so I work for a company called Ekurhuleni Water Care Company, right? And before I did philanthropy, we had a commercial business development wing, which I work for. So I do business development. Quite recently, for years, we've been having an issue with informal settlement sanitation, trying to understand how we can turn the coin into a business development or revenue enhancement initiative. We're going to our board, Lekgotla. I was actually supposed to be part of that this coming week. And we're discussing something different. We're discussing ESG and CSI to curb certain strategic initiatives that we had. And it's a catalytic project as well. So instead of us just looking at certain things as business or revenue enhancement initiatives, we've now started looking at them as CSI and philanthropic initiatives.
Lelentle, thank you so much. I know I just walked into you and said we are doing an interview. I always like impromptu conversations because I don't want you to be looking for figures and all of that. I want you to tell the story because philanthropy is really about stories of impact. And that's what I really wanted us to do. So thank you so much for joining us. That was Lelentle Motaung, a scientist in the water sector, a civil servant with the local government in South Africa, but also one of CAPSI students who joined us at the master's level and is now doing a PhD with CAPSI. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.
You've been listening to the CAPSI podcast series, Conversations on African Philanthropy.